Tyrone Bird is pastor of Moosomin Christian Fellowship just north of Battleford, Saskatchewan. He's here today to share his story. So you were the son of a pastor, but you didn't really follow in his footsteps right away. You kind of went to the wild side. Why did that happen, or what did you do?
Well, growing up, I believe I was maybe a foolish teen, and I didn't want my dad to be a pastor because, and then I thought it would be, I was embarrassed of my dad being a pastor. So I did everything I could to try to stop him from being a pastor. And then shortly after that, my dad had said, since I cannot manage my house, maybe I should step down from our church. And that was Battleford's Native Fellowship, and it was a beautiful church, an NEF church, and people would come from all the surrounding reserves to go and to be a part of the church and the church family. And then it eventually dwindled and then closed its doors shortly after that.
Where did that road take you then that you started on?
I had my first sip of alcohol at 14, and then from there it got, I drank a little bit more, till finally at age 30 I was diagnosed with a failing liver. And I just said, God, I wasted my life for that. I'm sorry. If you give me one more chance, I'd make the best of it, but I'm not expecting you to, so I'm just going to go home in a couple hours from now and commit suicide. But God, if you give me one more chance, I'd make the best of it. From there, my brother shows up with our family boat, and then he says, I filled it up with fuel. Do you want to try take it? And then all of a sudden, even though I was so sick, I thought, well, maybe I'll ask that girl if she wants to go tubing. So as sick as I was, I took her tubing, and I would, every time she would snort up water, and she would just burst out laughing. And then in my heart, I just said, God, if I could spend some time with that girl, I'd be happy. And then later on, we went on a couple more friend dates, and then she had said, would you ever want to maybe be my boyfriend? And then I was so embarrassed. I said, look at me. I said, I have nothing to offer you. I'm dying. Find yourself a husband that'll love you, take care of you, cherish you, protect you, honor you, make you laugh and treat you well. But as for me, I'm not that guy. And then she just knelt down and said a religious prayer, and she just, as she was saying this religious prayer, me being an all-knowing Baptist boy, I told her, I said, I don't think God listens to. And then that's when the God of the universe told me to be quiet.
Really?
And he rebuked me. Yeah, that was the only way this woman knew how to pray. And then her prayer might have had to bounce off of 10 saints to get to God, but he still heard it, and he still honored it. And God had restored my health. And about a year later, I got back all my color, and I'm healthy as can be.
So somewhere along the way here, you stopped drinking, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
When did you make that decision?
Roughly at that time. Yeah.
Okay.
I still get like maybe three drinking urges a day. But like Paul also had a thorn in his side, and I believe that maybe God has left that there, so I'd still remember to pray. But at the same time, God's grace is sufficient.
Wow, how long have you been sober?
I've been sober 9 years.
I know earlier in your life as well, you had a suicide attempt. Tell me about that.
At age 14, I was stubborn. I wanted to try and follow my own path, and I wanted to do whatever I wanted to do, and I wanted to like maybe rebel against my parents, and that just led to me not feeling inadequate, and I felt worthless. And then at the same time, it just all of a sudden one day my parents had left to go visit maybe my grandpa or my grandma, and then I was home alone, and then I just went and grabbed one of my grandfather's guns. And then I thought I'll just commit suicide, but as I pulled the trigger, nothing happened. And then when I took out the bullet, there was a dent in the primer. And then I just said, I felt like I was even a failure, that I couldn't even do that right.
So you start growing in your relationship with God. Do you go to church? How do you and your wife start following this new path?
She went to a different church based on her beliefs, and I went to a different church based on my beliefs. And then all of a sudden, and then every once in a while, she would invite me to her church, and then I'd invite her to my church. And then one day they were having a baptism, and then I was like, well, right now we're living in sin, but I would like to get baptized. So I went to my pastor, Dan Glass, and I said, you know what, I'm living in sin. I would desperately love to get baptized. And he said, you know what, we're poor. We can't afford to get married right now, but we would love to get married also. And he says, if that's all that's stopping you, he says, we'll baptize you, and then we're going to work on the steps to getting you married.
Wow, that's really cool.
So I felt I had to be perfected in order before I come to God or do these things, but God just said, I'll take you as you are.
And what is this like with your dad, who, you kind of forced out of ministry and now you're starting to follow God again?
And at the same time as he was discouraged for decades, and then all of a sudden, and then his son becomes a pastor, and then we purposely put our church, we want to be a home church so that our costs would be low, and then we actually put it in my dad's house. And through the 3 years of having church, he's attended, and now he's one of our elders and one of our pastors there, and he is greatly encouraged. And in 14 years of drug and alcohol abuse, my parents were never embarrassed of me, and now that for all those years, their son was a town drunk, and then today now their son is the pastor.
So when did you get the call to be a pastor?
Around that time when we got sober, in our reserve, Moosomin Native Fellowship, it's a beautiful, beautiful reserve, and there was almost 9 out of every 10 fatalities were alcohol related.
Wow.
So it was for a period of time where one body would go out and another body would come in, and the reserve was under a curse, I believe.
So basically, nobody was dying of anything other than alcohol, almost.
Yeah, at that time.
Nobody lived to old age.
Yeah, no one did.
Wow.
And then I just kept on saying, God, your children are dying. God, your children are dying. Send someone. And then as we would cry and scream to God, one day in an audible tone, God said, I've sent you. So I said, God, if we're going to start a church, we're going to love each other. We're going to sacrifice for each other. And we're going to visit each other more than 1 hour, more than 1 hour, more than 1 day a week.
And so how's that going?
It's going good. And since then, God has brought the most broken people in a reserve and given them a brand new life through his son, Jesus Christ.
Well, keep up the amazing work you're doing. We're going to keep following your story, Tyrone.
Thank you.